normal people become terrified of criminals.
Shots were just fired. Police just came out and told us, and we're headed there right now.
They become terrified of their own government.
We have this clip. It was posted on Twitter. It's got 500,000 views. Lofty Pixel says Ethan breaks down on stream after withstanding an unending barrage of 30,000 cultists in Hasan's chat spamming Hamas are resistance fighters and From the River to the Sea and Zionist Pig perpetually for 3 straight hours. Let me play this clip for you guys.
Sounds just like their Discord, actually.
Man. And you know I'm not a fucking radical Jew. I'm not even a religious Jew.
No,
I have no stake in the game. And this is coming from...
Yeah, it's still playing.
I know.
Ethan is now, he just gets up and leaves. So then we have another clip. There's a bunch of things that have been posted. This is The Quartering posted this 4 hours ago. Ethan Klein has epic meltdown after Hasan calls him stupid to his face. We'll play this briefly.
Saying Black Lives Matter doesn't insinuate that other lives don't matter. It's in the phrase, bro. I don't know what to tell you. From the river to the sea,
Palestine will be free. Also doesn't feature From the River to the Sea. We should destroy Israel and kill all the Jews. You're the one who's saying that is the secondary implication behind it.
Well, I think that...
And then, of course, we have this clip. This is from Too Lazy to Try, where he posts this clip. I couldn't find this one. I don't know where he got this clip from, but it's Ethan Klein basically breaking this down. I'll play a little bit of this so you can hear what he has to say.
Discord. And what I saw in that Discord was near universal praise for Hamas, near universal saying people deserved it, people near universally calling me a Zionist pig, mass murdering, genocidal freak. And if you want to know the truth, that shit fucked me up seeing that Discord, because it made me realize that a lot of these people are watching this show, and it frankly disturbed me. Listen, everyone in my periphery, everyone in my circle, all the leftist people that I watch, that I'm part of, that watch this show, because I consider myself a part of that side, are all pretty much uncritically accepting of Hamas propaganda and uncaring about the rewriting of history right before our fucking eyes about this stuff. So I'm not seeing a lot of people, even though you might look at the popular media and say, everybody's supporting Israel.
This is the breakdown in pop culture and modern culture. So Ethan Klein, for those that are familiar, he's got H3H3. They've been big for a really, really long time. He's got millions of subscribers. He has a big show. Hasan Piker, of course, is the most prominent leftist streamer. They do a show together called Leftovers. And now they're feuding with each other over this one. We saw Amy Schumer posting articles from Campus Reform, which is a conservative-leaning publication. We are seeing mainstream celebrities being fired from their jobs for supporting Israel. It is the weirdest thing to see someone like, you know what? I just got to say this. Ethan Klein is married to, this is correct, Serge, an IDF veteran?
Yeah, everyone in Israel has to serve with the IDF. Right. Her name is Hila, yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously he's Jewish. He has connections to Israel. When he started working with these other leftists, look, man, how do you not know the views of the people you're working with? This is not new. The leftist protests going back as far as I know were in support of Palestine. We're very critical of Israel. Yep. I feel like too many of these celebrities just said, I'll do whatever is popular. And now it's blowing up in their faces because they ended up saying, wait, hold on, I can't support that. Not to mention, it's this really weird circumstance where you do have massive, massive popular support for Palestine, critical of Israel, but you have major corporations that aren't having none of it. A lot of these celebrities are concerned they're going to lose money, they're going to lose jobs, they're going to get fired if they're critical of Israel. But at the same time, if you're supporting Israel, you're getting fired too. So it's like double cancel culture going on.
Who's gotten fired for supporting
Tara
Israel?
Strong. Tara Strong.
Who's that?
She's a voice actress. She got fired without notification because she was posting a bunch of stuff on Twitter like, I stand with Israel, people were kidnapped, and what Hamas is doing. And then they abruptly post saying, we'll no longer be working with her on the show. And she's like one of the most famous voice actresses
Okay.
in the world.
I haven't heard of that. My whole life, I've seen people getting canceled and smeared and fired for criticizing Israel. So, I mean, no one should be fired for their political views. I still think, though, the overwhelming trend is towards targeting people for being critical of Israel.
I do agree. And I think that's why a lot of these celebrities are just like, this is why you're seeing a lot of people on the left calling out Black Lives Matter now, because these leftist institutions, these activist organizations that are critical of Israel, pro-Palestine, are unabashedly coming out and saying like, nah, we're in support of this. And then it comes to an extreme degree where you have BLM Chicago posted the paraglider. You had several rallies in New York where the activists were actually cheering for Hamas explicitly. And I'm not saying Palestine. They were saying things like those hipsters, got kidnapped and taken. I'm sure they're doing fine, things like that. People are losing their jobs for that for sure. And now you've got those what was it? The Wall Street investors putting up a list of the people they will not hire.
Right. They were saying that there's certain universities they won't hire from. You have James Lindsay going out there saying don't hire college graduates, which is fascinating. I mean, he's saying that for all of his very specific James Lindsay reasons. Yeah. Not like the Israel thing. But you're seeing a lot of that. The thing in New York and the thing with celebrities, I think that a lot of it, they were fine to criticize Israel and support Palestinians because they simply didn't believe that an attack like this would happen. And so I think this was like a visceral reaction to this attack, which is the worst one since the Holocaust, apparently. It's like worse than the Yom Kippur War. Go ahead.
When people say it's worse than the Holocaust, I'm like, okay.
Well, it's not worse than the Holocaust.
Sorry.
It's like the biggest day.
Since.
Yeah, that's what they mean.
I'm like, okay, but there's a dramatic,
it's a huge difference.
Huge
6
difference.
million, 1,400, 6 million.
Yeah, and so look, the issue here is the only thing that I care about is the zealotry. Is like you had one individual who I won't name calling for, I'll put it this way. She said the only reason not to nuke Gaza is because the fallout would affect Israelis. And I'm like, that's insane. And then you also have people like BLM Chicago posting the paraglider. And I'm like, y'all, people, chill.
Well, what's interesting about the BLM Chicago thing is that was BLM grassroots. And BLM National was very quick to distance themselves from that group. Of course, they wouldn't have been last year.
Patrice Cullors has that famous line in 2015 where she said we must end. What did she call it? End the.
I don't remember, but I remember seeing
end the project or whatever that is called Israel or something she called it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But in New York, when you see activists pulling down American flags and putting up Palestinian flags and stuff, that's not a new sentiment in New York. That's a long. I mean. I lived in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn for a long time, which is a very Arab neighborhood. I was often like the only white person basically at the grocery store. And that neighborhood had pro-Palestinian marches and stuff. Every couple of weeks, every month or so, you would walk outside and see these big gatherings of people essentially opposing Israel and being pro-Palestinian. And that's in a neighborhood that's very Arab, but it's also like got a lot of Jews in that neighborhood. So I wasn't that surprised to see that erupt I was surprised at how many people there were, but that is a long-standing sentiment coming out of Brooklyn for sure.
Putting aside the content of pro-Palestine expression, a lot of which I would totally defend, I still think there's a huge power disparity. We're talking about what some activists say or what some signs say. When it comes to the media, when it comes to Congress, Rashida Tlaib just got censured for endorsing the slogan "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free," which I think is a call for equality. We could debate that if you want, but regardless, meanwhile, you have people on the other side. Brian Mast, a member of Congress, he's a Republican. He said that there's no distinction between civilians and Hamas inside Gaza. Lindsey Graham said we should level the place, referring to Gaza.
Lindsey Graham called for bombing Iran.
He's like, wait, hold on. He's the worst guy in the Senate.
So you have people calling for mass murder inside Gaza and openly endorsing state terrorism, saying there's no distinction between civilians and Hamas. They don't get censured. Rashida Tlaib, the one Palestinian American member of Congress, does. That's the power imbalance that I think speaks to what's going on.
What does that mean that she was censured? What happened exactly?
It's a formal resolution. You censure someone, you're basically reprimanding them for speaking out of.
Is it like if they do it again, they get fired or something?
Well, it entirely depends on the speaker. It depends on party leadership.
So it's like a warning? It's like an official warning or something.
It's like it's a demerit. It's like we here besmirch your honor, haha, and they.
But they don't lose anything. It's just like
losing would have to come from an official action by like the speaker or party member officials. So censure is mostly just like we hereby declare that you have done a bad thing.
Yes, we have agreed you have done wrong.
However, there is when Marjorie Taylor Greene got stripped from all her committees and she got booted. So power disparity really just depends on the subject matter. So I know you're specifically referring to the Israel-Palestine and not necessarily any other subject matters. I think the issue with this is, I got to be honest, man, these are the rules that Rashida Tlaib wants to live by. I have absolutely no problem with her being censured. First of all, it doesn't really do anything. It may be bad for her in the long run because clearly other members of Congress don't like her if they're willing to censure her. But my attitude when it comes to free speech has changed a bit from, I think it was very naive 10 years ago to say something like, we must defend the free speech even for those who disagree with us, to where I'm now at, I'll defend the free speech for anybody who defends free speech. Anybody who opposes free speech will get no defense from me. So if Rashida Tlaib and the people she works with are fine with censorship of other people, I will not be rushing to her defense.
Okay, that's a fair point because you want moral consistency, but I'll defend anyone's free speech. So as someone who does support that, I think it's fair to oppose her being censored, especially if we're trying to be consistent. People saying
it's not moral consistency. Well, it is if we allow people who oppose free speech to, like, if there are two forces and one side says, I will give you leeway, and the other side says, I will not give you leeway, then over a long enough period of time, the compromising party will lose. And this is actually the argument made by the left. They show that Karl Popper meme all the time about tolerating intolerance. I think that's a little dry, but if I simplify it, it's if Rashida Tlaib says we must defend free speech, defended free speech on campus, denounced the violent riots and the attacks on people for various opinions, I'd be right now saying, like, we must defend Rashida Tlaib because we disagree. So, for instance, like Cassandra McDonald, who's a good friend of mine, very critical of Israel, and she's adamantly pro-free speech. And so I'm just like, I will absolutely defend.
Oh, I got it. But how do you know that Rashida Tlaib is not pro-free speech?
So
because I know of her also defending the rights of Julian Assange. That to me is a free speech stance. So
that's good.
I haven't seen any evidence that she's anti-free speech, except for that she's a Democrat, which I understand. It's fair enough in these times to assume if someone's like a congressional Democrat, they might have some anti-free speech views. I think that's a fair assumption. But in the case of Rashida Tlaib, I can't think of any evidence offhand that she's anti-free speech. I mean, what have you seen from her?
Just going back over the past several years relating to various actions that have taken place in and around Congress and various stances and defenses from Congress pertaining to people like Marjorie Taylor Greene versus Ilhan Omar, it is free speech when it's something I care about, and if I don't care, I'm not involved.
Right. Okay.
But to be fair, it would be prudent of me to, before saying something like that, have like a list of examples. But my point isn't necessarily to single out Rashida Tlaib over this, because I don't think she's like she's like the epitome of a guilty party when it comes to not being in support of free speech. I agree with the Julian Assange stuff. And Rashida Tlaib has had several victories in the past, things that I agree with her on as well. I'm just more so, censorship is not that big of a deal, but I agree with you on the power disparity for sure when it comes to Israel, and mostly because the military-industrial complex and the lobbyists in this country absolutely want conflict, war, contracts, etc. Lindsey Graham exemplifies it better than anything else when he says we should bomb Iran with or without evidence. What's going on in Israel, I don't think, we were asking, I forgot what we asked on the show about it. Do you think it's religious? Because there are some people who are deeply religious, and there's podcasts that have come out where they say things like, this could be the second, or depending on your religion, the first coming of the Messiah. And so, and I know it sounds crazy, and there's a lot of people who don't believe this stuff, but there are very serious, prominent Christians and Jews who believe this may be the Messianic era, the red heifer, etc.
I get so pissed about that, because for the Israelis to claim it's a Jewish thing is putting all the Jewish people's lives at risk across the earth. But it is an Israeli thing. But
my point was, we asked, is it religious? No. At the highest levels, it's mostly just military expansion, oil, energy, etc. The U.S. has desperately wanted to go to war with Iran. Having military assets and control in Israel is massively, massively beneficial to the U.S. military interests in the region. It was very difficult to invade Iraq. It was very difficult to invade Afghanistan. We struggled and failed in both these countries, but in Israel, the United States has a very powerful military foothold. Not the same as, I'm not saying they have massive military bases the same as, Afghanistan. I mean, like, they don't need it when we are sending weapons and missiles and funding and things like that.
I totally agree that the U.S. interest is geopolitical, and Israel's been a client state of the U.S. since 1967 when it showed that it could smash Arab nationalism. And after that, Israel became very favored by the U.S. bipartisan establishment. Now, though, you do have this phenomenon of these extremists or of these, evangelical Christians who are a major base of support for Israel. That is important, especially in some congressional races. And you also have a pro-Israel lobby too, AIPAC, which also can influence congressional races with their sway. But the interest has always been the same. It's just because also Israel's gone so much to the right and has become, the face of it has become so clear, a lot of its former supporters have turned away from it because it's not as easy as it used to be. I mean, I'm Jewish. I grew up in a Jewish community. It used to be hard for people like me to hold the views which are critical of Israel. Now, in my circles, nobody defends Israel anymore. So hence they've had to find other bases of support, which is in the evangelical Christian community.
I find with like the left and the right spreading out, but also now shattering and like kind of almost like you see this, what's happening is if think of the left and the right on a globe and it's all around the equator, but it's twisting up. Like when tensions get high, people become authoritarian, that's going up, and then libertarian would be going down. So you go far to the left, but you're also twisting up, becoming more an authoritarian leftist, which is like fight, do the thing, the river to the sea, or you're going to the right and getting twisted up into an authoritarian rightist. Smash them all, the nuclear weapons in Gaza, and like, or you see the people's true colors come out in times of tension if they become more libertarian. Like, we should not be committing more arms to this to escalate it again. And then there's some people that you see the whole globe and they're like, well, we're in a military, we're basically controlling Earth's military right now, and Israel's a big part of that. If we let it go, that's going to be a big loss to the American military industrial.
Let me tell you what's really fascinating to me is Ron DeSantis. He orders the dissolution of these student groups that state in their like documents or whatever that they are not in support of the movement. They are the movement. Ron says they're asserting that they're Hamas, that they are not just activists. And many of these people involved.
Did they say we support the Hamas movement or just the resistance movement in general?
They said the document, I want to be careful because it did not say explicitly we are Hamas. It said the people who engaged in these fights are freedom fighters and we are part of that movement as Palestinians in exile.
Okay, so they're saying that they support resistance.
But I mean...
was that the Student Voices for Palestine?
It was whatever Ron banned.
Okay.
Ron's argument was, if you are claiming to be a part of this movement, this group, then you can't be a student group because that violates the law. Okay, you can't be actively trying to support a terrorist organization. You're gone. What was interesting is Vivek Ramaswamy came out and said, no way. These are students engaged in free speech. I actually talked to him, Vivek, very briefly, and I was like, yeah, but did you read it? They said they're not support of the movement. They are the movement. And he said, students saying stupid things is not the same thing as supplying terrorist organizations or providing material support. Ron should not be shutting these people down. And then actually on the debate stage said the same thing. I have tremendous respect for that because Vivek was not just easily swayed by this argument. Many people on the right who are in support of Israel were saying like, oh yeah, but look, they say they are, they're effectively saying they are Hamas. Because that's actually my first instinct was don't ban the group. Oh, wait, they're saying they're Hamas. Okay, well now it's getting interesting. Then Vivek pushes back and says, no way, free speech. So I think it's interesting. I think it's troublesome that we are definitely seeing there are many people who are pro-Israel that would be on the right that are not for free speech. And I think we have to be careful of, I certainly think it's more so on the left than the right, but opportunists who would claim to be for free speech and then at a moment's notice try and ban the speech of someone who speaks. They become
authoritarian, man, and you see it in the heat of the moment. I don't want to put... I really don't want to put Shapiro on blast. Ben, I love you. Return my phone calls. I'll stop putting you on blast. No, I haven't actually called him yet. But like, it shocked me how quickly he was screaming about annihilating a bunch of humans after his. And fear can do that to somebody, And if he was, when you're the military commander, you don't have time to think.
What do you mean by that?
He came out pretty early on, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he was very much like, we need a swift, strong counteroffensive, and we need to put this to bed. Basically saying
Ben's been pretty adamant that. The killing of civilians is a tragedy. The difference between him and the typical left is that he's in support of Israel's military actions, which is resulting in a lot of civilian dead. His argument, and I don't mean to argue for him, he can speak for himself, but his argument is more so that there's a difference between Hamas flying over and targeting people at a music festival and Israel targeting military leaders and killing civilians in the process. However, he has also said the killing of any civilian is a tragedy. The Daily, Jeremy Boring also said the death of any Palestinian civilian, women or child, as well as Israeli, are tragedies in an equal sense. So I'm not trying to defend what Ben is saying. I'm trying to clarify his position.
Yeah, and also
he's not saying just go around killing
people. It was the
people.
way he came out and said it. I guess it was the day of or the day after the attack, October 8th, or was it the 9th, when he spoke out publicly about it. Like I didn't see him talking about like, well, what happened? Why did the attack happen for 6 hours? Why was there no IDF response in 6 hours of this just raping and pillaging that these Hamas members were doing? Why was there no defense? I didn't hear any of that from Ben. It was just very much like, we need to go in. They've done it to us. Now get them. And it was like, that was a quick twist to authoritarian. And if he had his finger on the button, that's a temper I don't like.
My view would be a very simple: if someone attacks you, stop them, bring them to justice. However, I can see the arguments that are happening now are much, much, much different, right? Your video, you're talking about ceasefire. I think the amount of destruction that's happening in Gaza is exceeding what I would describe as proportional.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm trying to keep it very, very, very plain, if you can tell.
Yeah. The axiomatic line you have to say if you support Israel is that Israel has the right to defend itself. And in the abstract, yeah, of course, someone has a right to defend themselves. But what do we mean by that defense? So if this is October 7th and they're being attacked by Hamas, absolutely, you have the right to defend yourself. But this isn't October 7th anymore. Now this is a month-long operation, a carpet bombing of Gaza. As we're speaking, more than 11,000 killed, more than 4,600 children.
I got to push back on carpet bombing.
Yeah. Technically, I think it's not technical carpet bombing because it's targeting specific areas, and then there's just collateral damage. Okay. Carpet bombing would be targeting swaths of an area.
It's massive bombing of a densely populated area.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Massive, absolutely.
And what's missing from this discussion is an acknowledgement that before October 7th, things weren't all peachy. Israel's been occupying Gaza and the West Bank for decades, since 1967. And what is Gaza? The majority of it is refugees and their descendants, people who were expelled, ethnically cleansed by Israel in 1948. And a country that is occupying someone else doesn't have the right to defend itself in order to perpetuate that occupation. If they're being attacked on October 7th, I understand you defend your people. But after that, Israel's only obligation is to end the occupation. They don't have the right to bomb people because they live in an area where some militants fought back.
Well, thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.